All right, I want to begin this next story to say we're not about to talk about God, but we are going to talk about something many people believe to exist, yet they've never seen. Well, a few claim to have seen him or her, and they tell fascinating stories about their encounter. But again, not God. We're talking about Bigfoot or Sasquatch, because this weekend there's a first ever event happening in Nampa, Squatch Con 2021. And sure, there have been other gatherings in Idaho before dedicated to this wild man of the woods. But we're told not like this. And likely the wild man of the woods is not just one man. Experts believe there are many of them out there, dozens of them, right here in Idaho, in fact. The Gem State is ranked number 4 in the country, apparently, according to the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization. Number 4 per capita in Bigfoot sightings. Washington and Oregon take the top 2 spots, and that makes sense. They're right next door. So what better place to start Squatch Con than the 208? This Saturday, this street in downtown Nampa will be filled with fans of 8-foot-tall furry creatures.
Just celebrating Bigfoot. That's what it's all about.
It was an idea that sort of snuck up on Stu Johnson. Like, well, a Sasquatch.
And it kind of hit me. It's like, you know what? We don't have anything like that in the Treasure Valley that I'm aware of.
The name he knew almost immediately.
I said, so I'm going to call it Squatch Con.
Like Comic-Con, but smaller.
It's Bigfoot, so it's better.
So Stu went to work, posting his idea online, where it found footing.
First 4 weeks, I had 95K interactions.
And putting together some displays.
I decided we needed to have like a board that showed the sightings in Idaho, which is pretty cool.
Months of preparation for something that is just short of a passion for Stu.
Exactly, I'm a Bigfoot enthusiast.
Right down to the foot.
I got that a couple years ago.
On his calf. That's commitment right there.
That's very true, yeah.
Stu says he isn't alone in his excitement.
No trolls about Squatch Con, because anybody that I mention it to, they're like, that's such a great idea. I love it. I'm going.
And if you do go, maybe step on down 12th Avenue, where there will likely be other Sasquatch sightings at the historic train depot.
So this one actually is from the Twin Falls News.
A consummate coupling for Shayna Lynch.
I can do the history of Bigfoot in Idaho. I can marry my 2 favorite things in the world.
Once Shayna heard about Squatch Con,
I'm telling you, it happened just a few months ago.
She was all in. And she pulled in presenters and plans to fill more than one room with historical accounts of Bigfoot in Idaho.
What I have found is if Native Americans are telling you the history of Bigfoot, you are going to get a much different story than you are from hunters or fishers or hikers. If you're just going by newspapers, all you're going to hear about are wild men and ape men up until about 1910.
Shayna's interest in Sasquatch is like a lot of her generation.
I'm just used to the blurry image I kind of saw in the 80s.
That we all grew up on, exactly.
That's right. We all grew up on that.
Yeah. That is the Patterson film, shot in Northern California in 1967. But Shayna says her connection to these giant creatures is more personal.
Okay, so I believe I saw Sasquatch when I was 5.
She said it happened on a camping trip in California.
And I remember waking up and I looked out of my blinds and there were 2 yellow eyes staring straight back at me. And I did the freeze, you know, fight, flight, freeze. I totally froze, laid back down my bed, tried to wake my sister up. I looked through my blinds again, bam, right in my face, 2 yellow eyes, brown fur all around them. And at that point, it was no more freeze, it was fright and flight.
Of course, her parents found nothing outside.
And they couldn't explain it. We didn't really talk about it a lot, except, oh, Shayna saw the yellow eyes outside the camper. It was a joke.
That's kind of a common theme, and the question to any such Sasquatch sighting. If they exist, why haven't they been found?
Dr. Jeff Meldrum has a really good explanation.
Oh yes, Dr. Jeff Meldrum.
Are they in Idaho? Yeah, there's certainly a history of sightings.
An anthropology professor at Idaho State University, and one of the leading experts on all things Bigfoot.
As a scientist, my training and my research emphasis, all my experience is focused on the evolution of human bipedalism, that habit of walking on 2 legs and all that goes with it.
Is it possible for a Sasquatch to live in Idaho? And if so, how many do you think there are?
Oh, it's very possible. I mean, Idaho boasts more wilderness area than any other of the lower 48. So there's lots of habitat. How many? Well, These creatures are very rare. They're obviously very rare. Otherwise, we would have more evidence, more encounters with them reported. I would estimate, based on a number of clues and inferences from, bracketed information about great apes, that there's probably 75 to maybe 150 in the whole state of Idaho.
That's a lot.
You go out in those woods, you've got yourself a pretty decent chance of running into the big guy.
Which may explain why there could be a lot of people sighted at Idaho's first ever Squatch Con.
Every time I mention that there is a Squatch Con 2021, the first thing is, what? And then I say, Squatch Con, Sasquatch. And then it's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. I know someone, my husband, my uncle, my niece, they're so into that.
Well, Squatch Con officially starts tomorrow at 11 a.m., but Shayna is having a guest speaker tonight at the train depot if you'd like to go. It's an Idaho woman who has written several books about Bigfoot experiences and even has a few of her own to talk about. Experiences or encounters are going to be a big part of Squatch Con 2021. Aside from the guest speakers and artifacts on display, vendors and food trucks filling the streets, Stu says he's going to have a kind of open mic session where people can get up on stage and share their personal stories of Sasquatch sightings. That's free entertainment right there, just like the festival and the parking. That's also free.